All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Bluebeard's Mirror, reflecting the animus in modern women, written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. Bluebeard's Mirror, a field guide for men who still notice reality. The epistemology of the tantrum, why a 14.7 BPM Apple Watch isn't a revolutionary act, but absolute proof that Marxist parasites prefer H.R. Lynch, mobs, to syllogisms. A woman with a PhD, the highest academic credential our degraded universities still issue, recently published 2,000 words explaining that her inability to regulate her own nervous system constitutes proof that Western civilization must be dismantled. Her Apple Watch registered 147 beats per minute before she opened her eyes, and rather than concluding she might need magnesium, a walk, or a moment of honest self-reflection, she concluded that Logos itself is a gendered weapon. Her husband slept peacefully beside her. This was presented as evidence of his moral deficiency rather than his basic psychological stability. The child screamed because the moon was too loud. The mother validated this. The professor published it. The internet applauded. And somewhere in a closed family court session, a father lost access to his children this morning because a judge operating on identical epistemological principles treated an unverified feeling as superior to a documented fact. Consider what she is actually arguing, stripped of the prose styling. She argues that logic is oppression, that reason is a trap, that persuasion has failed and must be replaced with social penalties, by which she means coordinated attacks on the livelihood of any man who fails to perform adequate deference to female emotion in real time. She recounts with evident approval the story of a woman who identified a stranger in Target, tracked down his employer, and reported him to HR because he said someone needs a nap to a screaming toddler. This is presented as heroism. This is, in fact, the precise behavioral profile of the surveillance informant in every totalitarian regime in recorded history, but with a rose gold steering wheel cover and a hashtag. She demands free childcare, universal healthcare, and a universal basic income funded by patriarchal capital, which means, translated into the language of arithmetic, funded by the 80 to 90% of net positive lifetime taxpayers who are men who already build every structure she occupies, maintain every grid she depends on, die in 93% of workplace fatalities, and comprise 76% of suicides. She is not requesting justice, she is demanding tribute. I'm going to show you exactly how this ideological edifice collapses under the weight of its own internal contradictions. And I'm going to do it using the very tools she has declared illegitimate: definition, evidence, syllogism, and the unbending requirement that a claim about reality be falsifiable before it can be honored as true. I am going to walk through her article claim by claim and demonstrate, with the patience of a surgeon and the restraint of a hanging judge, that what she calls resistance is merely the ancient problem of acrasia, weakness of will over reason, elevated to a political platform and weaponized through institutions too cowardly to speak its real name. I will show you why her sovereign entitlement practice is indistinguishable from the clinical presentation of narcissistic personality disorder. Why her rejection of persuasion in favor of consequences is the signature move of every inquisitor who ever lit a match. And why the calm she envies and resents in her sleeping husband is not privilege. It is the cultivated virtue of a man who has learned to govern himself rather than demanding the world be burned down to match his internal temperature.
Bunkum article by a feminist, PhD. The unpaid emotional labor of scaling your soul. Why your dysregulation is actually resistance. Dr. Winona, feminist, Marxist, PhD. Last Tuesday, my heart rate monitor read 14.7 BPM at 6:14 a.m. before I'd even opened my eyes. My Apple Watch, which I wear because the medical industrial complex profits from women's anxiety about our own bodies, but also because data is feminist, gently vibrated to inform me I was experiencing an elevated state. No shit. The night before, my 3-year-old had woken up screaming at 2 a.m., then again at 4:30 a.m. Because, and I cannot stress this enough, the moon was too loud. My partner, Braden, slept through both episodes with the placid, bovine calm of a creature who has never once questioned his right to occupy space in this universe. I stared at the ceiling. My chest hurt. The heart rate monitor kept its silent, algorithmic vigil over the war zone that is my nervous system. By 6:45, I was in the car, knuckles white on my steering wheel cover, a rose gold silicone number that says "Girl Boss" in cursive font, a gift from my sister that I pretend is ironic, but actually find genuinely grounding, driving to a meeting with investors for my consulting cooperative, Convergent Equity Solutions, LLC, which I am attempting to scale into a 7-figure practice, despite having spent the entire previous evening Googling "Can toddlers sense your dissociation?" and how to build a self when you were never allowed to have one. And here is what I want to say, what I need to say, what my heart rate monitor was trying to say in its cold, clinical language of beats per minute. I am not broken. The world is broken, and I am done pretending otherwise. The dysregulation is the point. Jessica is scaling an e-commerce business from her kitchen table in Portland while parenting 2 children under 5. Her husband helps, and I use that word the way one might describe a fire as warm, by occasionally loading the dishwasher incorrectly and then looking hurt when she points out that the spatial arrangement of plates is not, in fact, a subjective matter. Jessica's wearable data shows she spends 73% of her waking hours in a state of heightened physiological arousal, which is clinical language for her body is screaming. Last month, Jessica had a panic attack during a Zoom pitch meeting. She muted herself, breathed into a paper towel, and completed the pitch. Then she picked up her children from daycare, cooked dinner, and lay awake until 2 a.m. wondering if she was a good mother. Jessica asked me, "Why can't I just be normal?" And I told her what I will tell every woman who ever asks me this. Normal is a patriarchal construct designed to pathologize your natural response to an unnatural world. Your dysregulation is not a personal failing. It is a political condition. You are not anxious because something is wrong with you. You are anxious because something is wrong with everything. And your body, that magnificent, denied, suppressed, colonized, policed female body knows it. Princess syndrome is self-care, and I'm tired of pretending it isn't. You know the tropes. The woman who expects too much. The woman who wants to be treated like a princess. The woman who has standards and boundaries and the audacity to believe that her time, emotional labor, and body have value in a world that has historically treated all three as resources to be extracted. I see you rolling your eyes. I feel you rolling your eyes, and I want you to sit with that discomfort, because your eye roll is a microaggression, and we're going to talk about it. When a woman demands, not requests, not suggests, not gently implies while smiling and tilting her head, just so, that her partner plan a date, remember her mother's birthday, or simply notice that she is drowning. She is not being entitled, she is refusing to participate in her own erasure. When I bought that steering wheel cover that says "Girl Boss," I wasn't being childish. I was reclaiming the narrative. I was asserting, in the most quotidian way possible, that this vehicle, this body, this life, this car belongs to me. Not to my partner, not to my children, not to the male gaze, me. Princess syndrome, as the patriarchy labels it, is simply the radical act of a woman, believing she deserves to exist without apology. And yes, I do want the world handed to me on a silver platter. I want free childcare, universal health care, a universal basic income funded by the taxation of patriarchal capital. And I want a society that considers my emotional well-being, my alebness, my lived feminine experience, as the foundation of public policy rather than an inconvenient footnote. Is that so much to ask? Don't answer that. I already know what you'll say, and your answer is why we need to dismantle everything you believe in. Persuasion has failed. Social penalties are the future. I want to be honest about something that makes comfortable people read. Men deeply uncomfortable. I have stopped trying to persuade. Not because I can't argue I have a PhD. I can construct a syllogism that would make your undergraduate philosophy professor weep with recognition. I can debate reason and cite sources with the best of them. But here's what I've learned after 20 years in gender studies, after consciousness-raising sessions with thousands of women, after watching the same arguments play out in the same ways with the same results. Persuasion is a tool of the oppressor. The demand that women make a rational case for our own humanity is itself a patriarchal trap. It assumes that the playing field is level, that reason is neutral, that logic is universal, that the logos, look it up, is not itself a gendered weapon designed to silence the emotional, the embodied, the feminine way of knowing. When you say convince me, what you're really saying is, perform intellectual labor for my entertainment, while I remain the arbiter of what counts as a valid argument. No, no more. What works, what has always worked, is consequence, social penalty, the withdrawal of approval, access and platform from those who refuse to evolve. Some people call this cancel culture. I call it community accountability. Some people call it mob justice. I call it the only form of justice available to the powerless. Some people call it totalitarian. I call it tough love on a civilizational scale. When a man says something dehumanizing about women, in a meeting, on a date, in a Facebook comment, in the privacy of his own mind, that he then externalizes through microaggressions so subtle that only a woman trained in the semiotics of patriarchy can detect them, the appropriate response is not debate. The appropriate response is documentation, circulation, consequence. He was talking about the child, but he might as well have been talking about Sarah. The implication was clear. You are failing at this. I, a man, have noticed you should feel shame. Sarah didn't argue. She didn't explain. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "Are you going to help, or are you going to perform your superiority and leave?" He stammered. He walked away. Sarah later posted about the encounter in a private Facebook group for mothers. Within hours, someone identified him. He turned out to be a mid-level manager at a local tech firm. Someone, I don't know who, and I don't need to know who, forwarded the thread to his HR department. Was this an overreaction? There is no overreaction when you are fighting for your right to exist in public without being policed. The only language power understands is power. The only consequence that matters is one that costs something. And if a man's comfort is the price of a woman's dignity, then I'm afraid his comfort is simply going to have to be deconstructed. The heart rate monitor doesn't lie, and other things my body knows that your logic can't touch. What does that number mean? In a patriarchal framework, it means I have an anxiety disorder. It means I should meditate, exercise, drink less coffee, practice self-care, a term that has been colonized by capitalism to mean buy a bath bomb and stop complaining. It means the problem is inside me. But in a feminist framework, in my framework, that number means my body is telling the truth that my mouth has been trained to suppress. My heart rate is data. My heart rate is evidence. My heart rate is an embodied testimony that the world I am living in is not designed for my survival, and my nervous system is responding appropriately to a threat that the intellect has been gaslit into ignoring. I want you, and by you I mean men, but also the women who have internalized the male gaze and now police other women on its behalf. I want you to understand something very clearly. When a woman is dysregulated, she is not malfunctioning, she is witnessing. Her chaos is clarity, her tears are data, her rage is analysis. Her 3 a.m. spiral about whether she's a bad mother, a fraud, a hollow shell performing a role she was never allowed to choose. That spiral is the most honest thing that will happen in any room she occupies that day. And your job is not to fix it. Your job is not to calm her down. Your job is not to deploy your logos, your logic, your reasonable perspective, your steady hand on the steering wheel of the car that she is driving while you ride shotgun and criticize her lane position. Your job is to listen to believe, to sit in the discomfort of knowing that your existence, your calm, your peace, your unearned serenity is the cause of her storm. And then your job is to do the work, which means pay for it, all of it, the therapy, the childcare, the systemic transformation. The complete reorganization of civilization around the principle that women's lived experience is the supreme epistemic authority, and your objectivity is just the privilege of never having to feel anything. Scaling the revolution, a business metaphor because I know how you think. I am scaling my business. It's hard because I'm dysregulated. And I'm dysregulated because I live in a world that demands I be two people, the nurturing mother and the ruthless CEO, while providing none of the structural support that would make either role sustainable. But I'm also scaling something else, something larger, something you can't put on a pitch deck because its value is incalculable. I'm scaling the revolution. Every time a woman refuses to be reasonable, the revolution scales. Every time a woman names the harm instead of absorbing it, the revolution scales. Every time a woman demands, not asks, demands that her emotional reality be treated as fact, the revolution scales. And every time a man is made uncomfortable enough to feel, really feel the weight of what he has participated in, the revolution scales exponentially. This is not a metaphor. This is a business plan, and the ROI is the complete transformation of Western civilization. A note to my sisters: if your heart rate monitor says you're dying, I believe you. If your steering wheel cover is the only thing that makes you feel in control, I see you. If you're trying to scale a business, a family, a self, all at once, all without help, all while being told you're too much and not enough in the same breath, I am you. You are not crazy. You are not broken. You are not asking for too much. You are a prophet in a world that burns witches. And darling, we're the ones with the matches now. Burn the patriarchy, listen to women, my heart rate, isopolitical statement, girl boss, sovereign entitlement, not all women, community accountability. Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist, PhD, is Professor of Gender Studies, a High Coven member, and the author of Your Calm is My Violence, Essays on the Patriarchy of Peace, forthcoming. Her heart rate is currently 112 BPM. The epistemology of the tantrum, why pathos is not logos. Aristotle identified akrasia, the failure of the will to obey the intellect, as the root of moral dysfunction. He did not call it resistance. He did not prescribe a steering wheel cover. He understood that when a person cannot govern herself, the civilized answer is self-mastery, not a demand that the universe be rebuilt around her tremors. I want you to hold that thought, a man from 2,300 years ago who understood human nature more precisely than an entire modern gender studies department, while we dissect what may be the most honest document the feminist project has ever produced. Honest, because the writer accidentally tells the truth in every paragraph while trying to lie. Her heart rate is 147 beats per minute, and she thinks the moon is too loud. Let us begin with the moon. This short narrative is revealing beyond her comprehension. A toddler screams because the moon is too loud, and the mother's response is not to teach the child that the moon makes no sound, that her perception has betrayed her, that the feeling of auditory assault is not proof of auditory reality. No, the mother validates the hysteria. She lies awake, heart pounding, and concludes that the world must change, not the child's relationship to reality. This is the neural pathology of an entire generation of women who have been told that every internal disturbance maps onto an external injustice. Consider the formal structure of this reasoning. Premise 1. I feel distress. Premise 2. Distress must have an external cause. Conclusion. The world is broken. Do you see the missing term? The philosopher would ask, cui bono? Who benefits from a philosophy that converts every personal failure of regulation into an unpayable debt owed by civilization to the complainant? The answer walks among us, wearing a rose gold steering wheel cover that says Girl Boss and claiming it is ironic. The writer states, normal is a patriarchal construct designed to pathologize your natural response to an unnatural world. Define normal. The word derives from the Latin norma, a carpenter's square, a tool for measuring whether something is true and upright. Normal is not a weapon. It is a standard, the same standard that allows a bridge to hold weight, a courtroom to deliver justice, and a civilization to perpetuate itself across generations. When she declares war on normalcy, she is declaring war on the very concept of measurement, on the transcendental of truth itself. She is saying, I refuse the carpenter's square. Build the bridge around my shape. And if the bridge collapses, if the children raised without standards become adults who scream at the moon, the fault, you see, is never in the woman who refuses correction. It is in the patriarch who failed to anticipate her infinite capacity for chaos. Consider the word dysregulation. The writer uses it 14 times. She has turned a clinical term describing a failure of executive function into a badge of honor, a martyr's stigmata, a prophet's vision. But let us examine what dysregulation actually means in the behavioral sciences, the inability to manage emotional responses within the acceptable range of typical intensity. It is a deficit. It is the absence of a skill. It is not witnessing. It is the exact opposite of witnessing, because witnessing requires the observer to maintain enough distance from the phenomenon to see it clearly. A woman drowning in her own nervous system is not a prophet. She is a drowning woman. And the compassionate response is not to validate the drowning as resistance to patriarchal norms of buoyancy. The compassionate response is to teach her to swim. Or more precisely, to stop telling her that the water is a social construct and swimming is masculine violence against her authentic sinking. The writer's husband, Braden, sleeps with what she calls bovine calm. Bovine. She reaches for the vocabulary of livestock to describe a man at peace. Consider that word choice. A man fulfills his duties, lies down in the home he pays for, and sleeps, and his rest is framed as animalistic stupidity, an unearned privilege, a moral failing. The Stoics taught that tranquility is the reward of the disciplined mind, the natural fruit of living, according to reason and virtue. But in the inverted theology of feminism, a man's peace is his sin. His quiet breathing is evidence of his complicity, his failure to lie awake, tormenting himself with the same phantom anxieties that consume his wife is not serenity. It is violence. This is not analysis. This is the paranoid style of totalitarian thinking, where your neighbor's happiness becomes proof of your oppression. This writer demands that we believe her heart rate. She calls it data. She calls it evidence. Here we encounter the most catastrophic epistemological error of the entire feminist project. The confusion of pathos with logos, of feeling with fact. A heart rate of 147 beats per minute is indeed data, but data about what? It is data about sympathetic nervous system activation. It is data about cortisol. It is data about a body preparing for fight or flight. It tells us completely nothing about the cause of that activation, any more than a thermometer reading tells you whether your fever is caused by a virus or by standing in the Sahara. Her elevated heart rate is not evidence that the world is broken. It is evidence that her nervous system is broken. The moon is not too loud, her amygdala is too loud. And no amount of community accountability or sovereign entitlement practice or defamatory HR complaints against strangers at Target will silence an organ that is screaming at its owner to take responsibility for her own internal landscape. And what a confession it is. She does not whisper her intentions. She broadcasts them from a stage, surrounded by cheering acolytes, with the confidence of someone who has never once been cross-examined. Every sentence is an exhibit, threats of arson dressed as empowerment, collective guilt dressed as analysis, fiscal enslavement dressed as care infrastructure. The German radicals had a word for what happens when you demonize an entire class as the source of all suffering, and it didn't end with TED Talks. She has abandoned persuasion, declared his piece an act of violence, and handed out matches to everyone in the crowd. I will walk through each of these confessions in turn, and I will not be polite about it. The totalitarian imperative, how community accountability enslaves the productive. A 14th century Florentine merchant could be hauled before an ecclesiastical court on the uncorroborated testimony of a spiteful neighbor, stripped of his goods, and left to rot in a cell, while his accuser faced zero consequences for perjury. We call that the Dark Ages. Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist, calls it community accountability and wants it back with an Apple Watch interface. Her article is not analysis. It is a confession document submitted voluntarily to the public record, and I intend to read it back to her slowly, the way one reads a confession to the condemned before the trapdoor opens. Let us begin with her closing threat. We're the ones with the matches now, which she deploys with the aesthetic satisfaction of a toddler who has discovered the fireplace lighter. She intends this as power. It is, in fact, an admission of total creative impotence. The feminine impulse, severed from masculine ordering principle, does not build cities, bridge rivers, draft constitutions, lay cable, forge steel, or write code. It burns things. The matched metaphor is not incidental. It is the entire philosophical program reduced to a single image. She has nothing to offer but combustion. Every hospital she will ever visit was built by men, whose names she will never learn. Every courtroom she fantasizes about wielding against her enemies operates on a tradition of due process authored entirely by the civilization she proposes to incinerate. The iOS device she uses to coordinate her digital lynch mobs runs on silicon, rare earth minerals, and engineering principles that her gender studies doctorate could not produce in 10,000 years of trying. Her revolution is a parasite lecturing its host on justice. The matches she brandishes were manufactured in a factory, designed by men, shipped on roads paved by men, powered by an electrical grid maintained by men who will die on average 6 years earlier than she will, in occupations where men account for 92% of workplace fatalities. She is not Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. She is a tourist flicking a bic in a cathedral and calling herself an architect. She frames her dysregulation not as a personal misfortune requiring treatment, but as a witness to systemic injustice. Her heart rate, she tells us, is data. Her chaos is clarity. Let us test this epistemology against any other domain of human knowledge. If a man's heart rate spikes to 147 beats per minute because his employer is demanding he meet a deadline, does the medical profession conclude that the deadline is a patriarchal construct? Or does it conclude correctly that the man's stress response is reacting to a stimulus and that the appropriate intervention is to address either the stimulus, the response, or both? Her framework is unfalsifiable by design, which is to say it is not a framework at all, but a closed theological system. If she is calm, the system is working. If she is dysregulated, the system is oppressive. There exists no possible state of affairs, no conceivable arrangement of social institutions, no level of male accommodation short of literal self-immolation that could disconfirm her thesis. This is not empiricism. This is augury. She has replaced the scientific method with a mood ring and demanded that civilization reorganize itself around whatever color it displays on a given Tuesday morning. Consider her demand that men pay for it all: the therapy, the childcare, the systemic transformation, the complete reorganization of civilization. She does not specify figures because specifying figures would expose the arithmetic. In the United Kingdom, men are net contributors to the fiscal system from approximately age 43 until death, while women become net recipients from the moment they enter the workforce and remain so until they exit it in a coffin. The tax gap is not marginal, it is structural, persistent, and replicated across every Scandinavian welfare state that feminists hold up as utopia. The average American man will pay roughly $150,000 more in net taxes over his lifetime than he will ever receive in state benefits. The average American woman will extract roughly $150,000 more than she contributes. This transfer is not the residue of patriarchy. It is the system she claims oppresses her. She lives in the only civilizational arrangement in human history that has made female survival and comfort its primary budgetary priority, and her response is to publish articles threatening to burn it down because her heart rate is elevated. Her account of Sarah at Target is perhaps the most revealing passage in the entire document. A man makes an anodyne comment to a stressed mother. Someone needs a nap, huh? And the response is not a conversation, but a coordinated intelligence operation. Identification, documentation, circulation to a private network, escalation to his employer. Let us catalogue what occurred. A stranger spoke to her. She experienced this as a microaggression so severe that it warranted mobilizing a surveillance network to damage his livelihood. No hearing, no evidence standard, no opportunity for him to present his account of the interaction, no cross-examination, no impartial arbiter, just a Facebook group functioning as a star chamber, an HR department functioning as an executioner, and a man whose only crime was failing to pass a shit test he did not know he was taking. This is the jurisprudence of the Witchfinder General, updated with reaction emojis and a thread title. In any functioning legal system worthy of the name, the accused has the right to face his accuser, to examine the evidence, and to have his fate decided by neutral parties applying consistent standards. She proposes to replace this with the feelings of a Facebook group and the compliance machinery of a human resources department. The result is not justice. It is a gender-flavored variation of the Salem Protocol. Spectral evidence, accusation as conviction, and the doomed man permitted no defense because the crime exists entirely in the accuser's interpretation. She declares, with refreshing honesty, that she has stopped trying to persuade. This is the single most important sentence in the article, and I want you to sit with it the way she wants her readers to sit with their discomfort. Persuasion requires premises, evidence, logical connection, and vitally, the possibility of failure. If your argument cannot fail, it is not an argument, it is a creed. If your response to counter-evidence is to declare the evidence itself a patriarchal construct, you have not engaged in dialectic. You have built a church and named yourself Pope. Her rejection of persuasion is an admission that her claims cannot survive contact with reasoned scrutiny. She does not say, "I have tried persuasion and found it lacking." She says persuasion is itself a tool of the oppressor. This is not a political position. It is an epistemological escape hatch. Every totalitarian movement in recorded history has arrived at precisely this junction, the moment when the faithful conclude that rational discourse is complicity with evil and that only pure force, social or physical, can achieve the kingdom of heaven on earth. The Jacobins reached it, the Bolsheviks reached it, the Red Guards reached it, and now, with the gravitas of a woman whose most consequential intellectual act was purchasing a rose gold steering wheel cover, Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist PhD, has reached it too. The phrase community accountability deserves the etymological attention she has clearly never given it. Accountability implies an account, a reckoning, a measured assessment of costs and benefits, a ledger in which debits and credits are tracked with something resembling precision. What she describes bears no resemblance to accountability. It is, by her own admission, a punitive mechanism operating without evidentiary standards, without procedural safeguards, and without any metric by which its own practitioners could be held to account if they targeted an innocent man. A mob is not a community. A lynching is not accountability. The fact that she frames bureaucratic harassment as tough love on a civilizational scale tells you everything you need to know about her relationship with both love and civilization. She loves the way a tapeworm loves its host, deeply, possessively, and with absolute commitment to the host's continued inability to identify the source of its wasting. Her forthcoming book is titled, Your Calm is My Violence, and I want to state plainly what this means in practice. She experiences male composure, Braden sleeping through a toddler's tantrum, a stranger offering a benign comment, a man simply existing in a state of equilibrium as a personal attack. His peace is her provocation. His self-regulation is her grievance. This is not the language of a political movement seeking equitable arrangements between the sexes. It is the theological vocabulary of a demonic possession, where the very existence of stillness and order is experienced as aggression by a spirit that thrives exclusively in chaos. The wife who screams at her husband for reading quietly in the next room is not responding to anything he has done. She is responding to the fact that he can be quiet, and she cannot. His capacity for peace is the mirror in which she sees her own disorder, and she would rather shatter the mirror than confront what it reflects. Multiply this dynamic by several hundred million, arm it with HR departments, family courts, social media platforms, and the coercive apparatus of the therapeutic state, and you get the current century, a civilizational scale BPD episode in which the productive and orderly are systematically pathologized so that the chaotic and dysregulated need never look inward. A civilization that privileges feeling over evidence, accusation over due process, safety over liberty, and the maternal instinct over constitutional order has not evolved past its predecessors. It has regressed behind them. The men who drafted Magna Carta, the men who argued for the presumption of innocence, the men who designed separation of powers and codified the right to confront one's accuser, all of them understood, with the clarity that only long exposure to human malice can produce, that the mob is always closer than we think, and that the only barrier between civilization and the mob's appetites is procedure. Dr. Winona wants to tear down that barrier and replace it with her heart rate monitor. She demands that we trust her body over our law, her feelings over our evidence, her Facebook group over our courts, and she has the goal to call this justice. It is not justice. It is a theology of the tantrum, a liturgy of the lymphatic system, a cathedral built from complaints and consecrated by grievance, and the God it worships is not truth or mercy or even equity. The God it worships is the unchecked female ID, which is to say the most destructive force in the natural world, once you remove the civilizing disciplines of accountability, proportion, and the cold beautiful. Indispensable requirement that any claim, no matter how sincerely felt, no matter how loudly proclaimed, no matter how many heart rate monitors vibrate in sympathetic resonance, must survive contact with evidence before it is permitted to destroy a single human life. You have read this far because something in you refused to die. That thing has a name, Logos. The very faculty she mocks as a gendered weapon is the spark of the divine fire that built every cathedral, every courtroom, every constitutional safeguard she now turns against you like a captured cannon. She tells you her 147 BPM heart rate is data. I tell you that a thermometer does not prove the weather is unjust. It proves the thermometer exists in a body that has not learned to govern itself. The Greeks had a word for a man who confused his passions with universal truth, a kratik. They did not build statues to him, they wrote cautionary comedies. Consider what she actually confessed. She confessed that persuasion has failed her, not because the world is broken, but because her arguments are, no syllogism can derive, therefore I deserve your house, your children, and your income from therefore I feel anxious at 6 a.m.s. The demand that civilization reorganize itself around her elements is not politics, it is pathology wearing a mortarboard. When a man in a psychiatric ward insists the TV is broadcasting his thoughts, we do not hand him the broadcast tower, we treat him. When a woman with a PhD insists her Apple Watch proves Western civilization must be dismantled, Harvard gives her a tenure track. The difference is not diagnostic. The difference is that one pathology is profitable to the grievance industry and the other is not. Let us speak of real data, since she invoked the word without ever bowing to its master. In the United Kingdom, 3 men take their own lives for every woman who does. In the United States, it is nearly 4-1. Male suicide is not a metaphor. It is a corpse hanging from a beam in a garage, while the family court order still warm from the printer demands he fund the household from which he was ejected on the basis of an unverified accusation. The abortion rate she celebrates as liberation? 63 million in America alone since 1973, more than all combat deaths in every war the Republic has ever fought, combined, multiplied. The paternity discrepancy rate in validated genetic studies runs between 10 and 30%, depending on population. That is not a statistic. That is a man raising another man's child under legal penalty of imprisonment if he refuses. She calls this justice. The dictionary calls it fraud. You are no longer ignorant. That is your reward and your burden. You now see that the article was not an argument, but a symptom, the angry thrashing of a spirit that refuses integration, that demands the world become her mirror, rather than submitting to the world as her teacher. You have been given the lenses. Do not take them off. When your sister, your date, your colleague, your HR representative deploys the same rhetoric, the same reframing of hysteria as heroism, the same demonization of male competence as oppression, the same demand that you fund a revolution whose stated goal is your erasure, you will recognize it, you will name it, you will stand firm. Not with rage. Rage is her currency. Stand with the calm, immovable authority of a man who knows that reality does not negotiate with tantrums. The West was not built by people who demanded the moon be quieter. It was built by men who looked at the moon, calculated its orbit, and went there. Be that man. The civilization you save will be your own. Now go tell someone. And now the sponsored book introduction. Bluebeard's Mirror, reflecting the animus in modern women. If you're a man who's tired of being told to sit down, shut up, and apologize for existing, this book is for you. If you've ever felt like you're walking on eggshells in a world that glorifies female supremacy, while demonizing masculinity, you're not alone. I've been there. I felt the sting of being treated like a second-class citizen in a society that claims to value equality, but only if it means elevating women at the expense of men. This book is my attempt to make sense of the chaos, to understand why women seem to be at war with themselves and with us. I didn't set out to write this book because I wanted to be controversial. I wrote it because I saw a problem that no one else was willing to address. I saw men being stripped of their dignity, their strength, and their purpose, all in the name of progress. I saw women possessed by their inner Bluebeard, the animus, as Carl Jung called it, lashing out at men, projecting their own insecurities and fears onto us. I saw relationships crumbling under the weight of unrealistic expectations and toxic narratives, and I realized that if we don't confront these issues head-on, we're doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. This book is not for everyone. If you're a die-hard feminist who believes that men are the root of all evil, you're not going to like what I have to say. If you're a man who's content to play the role of the beta male, constantly apologizing for your existence and bending over backward to please women who will never be satisfied, this book isn't for you either. Put it down. Go watch some Netflix or take up knitting. Do something that doesn't challenge your worldview. But if you're a man who's ready to reclaim your masculinity, to understand the psychological forces driving women's behavior, and to take control of your life, then keep reading. I've spent years studying the works of Carl Jung, evolutionary biology, and psychology to understand the dynamics between men and women. What I've found is that the animus, the inner masculine force in women, is often misunderstood, and when it's not properly integrated, it can wreak havoc on relationships and society as a whole. Women's animus possession leads to shit-testing, hypergamy, and a neurotic need for protection, all of which create a toxic environment for men. Feminism, far from being a movement for equality, has become a misandrist ideology that seeks to elevate women above men, destroying the very fabric of our civilization in the process. This book is a call to arms for men who are tired of being demonized, shamed, and oppressed. It's a guide to understanding the inner workings of the female mind and how it impacts your life. It's a roadmap to reclaiming your masculinity in a world that's trying to erase it. If you're ready to challenge the toxic narratives that are destroying our civilization, if you're ready to take control of your destiny, then this book is for you. But be warned, once you see the truth, there's no going back.
Bluebeard's Mirror, Reflecting the Animus in Modern Women, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.